The headline, the title of this video is clickbait. I think it's important to be truthful and honest. I think your immediate and instant reaction to the first round of the college football playoff should be that there is no immediate and instant reaction because it's easy to overreact. It's easy to call for drastic and dramatic changes to the college football playoff after watching the first four games because they were not close. They were not super interesting, super compelling. And yet, I think that's okay because time and time again, the College Football Playoff Committee has shown that either A, they don't necessarily know who the best teams are, who the most deserving teams are, who's peaking at the right time. And so having 12 teams in the playoff rather than 4 sure makes that job a lot easier. And I think that job being easy is one that I think you should want the job to be easy. I think you should want more teams into the college football playoff because if the group of people choosing who makes the college football playoff are flawed in their decision making, I would much rather there be margin of error and the field be more inclusive than exclusive. Because over and over and over again, we have seen that where I don't know if you guys know who the best teams are, or the answer is there's really only 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 teams who can actually win the national championship. And I think this is one of those years where the field is a little wide open. Of the 8 teams left, how many of them do you think can win the title? Is it 4? Is it 5? I don't know. In the past, there have absolutely undeniably been years where it's been 2 or 1 that it was this team is going to win the national championship and there's not anything you can do about it. But I don't think we live in those times anymore. And so I would prefer more teams over fewer teams. But I think the instant reaction for a lot of people leads to overreaction of we need to completely scrap the college football playoff format the way it sits right now. And I think part of that rests with the fact that Boise State and Arizona State got byes this weekend, while teams like Ohio State and Tennessee and Penn State played, while Notre Dame was in action. If you were to ask the average college football fan, the average college football coach, etc., who do you think is better, Notre Dame or Boise State? Notre Dame or Arizona State? You're going to get a much drastically different answer than what we saw play out bracket-wise. But it's easy to have that overreaction when it's the first time we've ever seen it, when it's the first time we've ever had it. The 2 things people hate are the way things are and change. And so I think it's important to have this current playoff iteration, this system we have right now. I think it's important to have it for a year, 2, 3, 4 before you start going to make drastic changes. Do we get to a point where it's just seeded 1 through 12 and you get an automatic berth if you win the conference championship? Potentially. But I've said it before, and I'll say it again over and over and over again. The conferences want the conference championship games to matter. They need a way to ensure that the conference championship games are looked at as they are this big, important thing to accomplish in your college football season. Because the second that they diminish in importance, the second they diminish in value, the second they diminish in revenue. And they need them to be important in value and revenue. So the conference championship games are not going to go away. They're just not. And I think the conferences are going to fight tooth and nail to ensure that the buys stay intact. Because while the SEC might not be thrilled that they only got 3 teams into the playoff, they do have a team that is got to buy and that they have to feel somewhat good about making it to the semifinals. Maybe 2 of them to feel really good about making the semifinals. And the reason that's set up that way is because they angled for, got, and wanted, frankly, a bye for their conference champion, which makes sense. But it didn't the system didn't inherently benefit the SEC in 2024. And so automatically the discussion becomes, we have to change this. We have to figure this out, because right now, and I don't, do you know what the average margin of victory was in the semifinals during the 14 playoff? It was 17 points. The argument that we expanded the playoff and now the games stunk in the first round means that we expanded too far, or really it should only be 6 teams instead of 12 teams. Or I think that's backwards thinking, because if we go to 6 teams instead of 4, Ohio State and Tennessee are playing each other in the Outback Bowl. And I think that stinks, because you know what? While Tennessee maybe didn't perform very well in Columbus on Saturday night, are they one of the 12 best teams in the country? Yeah, I think so. And are they deserving of a chance to win the national championship? Yeah, I think so. And if Ohio State's losses are by 1 point to the number 1 team in the country and to the team who won the national championship game by 3, should that preclude you from competing for the national championship? In my estimation, no, it shouldn't. And so I'm always going to angle for more teams in the college football playoff. I think, if anything, my immediate reaction from the first round of the 12-team playoff is we're probably going to get to 20 at some point. We're probably going to get to a point where every conference champion, that includes the Sun Belt, MAC, Mountain West, Conference USA, American, is going to be in the playoff. And then there are 11 at-large bids. I think that's where we get to eventually, because college football is the only sport in college athletics that winning the conference championship doesn't guarantee you access to win the national championship. And that will be the argument at some point. Either that, or we'll get a group of 5 playoff. One of those 2 things is bound to happen, in my opinion. But I think that's a discussion for farther on down the line than today. I don't think today needs to be the day that we discuss the formatics, the formulaics, the bracket, etc. I think you just look at it as, hey, the 4 teams that were expected to win won. And the chances of that continuing over and over and over again, time after time after time, that year after year, we're going to see 2 touchdown victories or 3 or 4 touchdown victories in the first round, and the home teams, or the expected teams, the favorites to win every year. I don't think that's going to continue, because at its core, college football is interesting and unpredictable. And while it didn't play out that way on Friday and Saturday night, I don't think you need to make changes just because the first 4 games, the first time you did it, weren't the most interesting, compelling, unpredictable, chaotic games we've ever seen. So my instant reaction to the first round of the college football playoff is, I think we shouldn't overreact. I think we shouldn't make rash, illogical decisions. One, based on the preferences of one conference who feels as if they were slighted because they didn't get more than 3 teams in, and then the one of their teams gets absolutely mollywopped. But then also, I think you got to worry about unintended consequences. And when you start fiddling with things after the first time we've done it, I think you get a lot of unintended consequences. And I think we should probably look to avoid that in the future. Want to know your thoughts. What did you think of the first round of the college football playoff? Let me know in the comments down below. that'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. I appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all the great college football content we're pumping out. If you are listening on the podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. I'll see you tomorrow for another episode of the Daily Huddle.